So I'm going to make some sausage, breakfast sausage, and then to that we're going to make some gravy and some biscuits. So to begin with, in a previous video we made ground beef. You're going to do the same ground beef recipe exactly, except for you don't cook it. So after you shred all the vegetables, you just go ahead and mix it with the pumpkin seeds, and then that's all you have because it's going to bake in the oven a long time. And so it's just one batch of that, which is roughly 2 cups of it. You're just going to put it in your food processor with your S-blade on there. And then to that, we're going to add our seasonings, and this is what makes it taste like the sausage. So in this bowl, I don't know if you can see all that, it's really pretty. We have a teaspoon of poultry seasoning, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, a teaspoon of crushed fennel, a half a teaspoon of red pepper, a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of paprika. Did I say fennel? There's a teaspoon of crushed fennel in there too. Anyway, so that's all you're gonna do. You're just gonna mix it up. Now you're not gonna make a puree out of this, so be careful with your food processor because it's easy to over mix. You're just gonna pulse it. You want some texture, you know, sausage has some texture. So you're just gonna add that to your food processor. And now we just, oh, by the way, preheat your oven to 400. Sorry, I should have said that to begin with. So just gonna pulse it a little bit. Kind of get it all mixed in there real good. Just a few times, all it takes. Have your cookie sheet with a silicone mat, like a baking mat, or you can just use wax paper, I guess. And then dump it all out into your pan. And you're gonna bake it at 400 degrees for about 25 minutes. You're gonna turn it or stir it like halfway through, and it's gonna get, you're gonna like roast it, and it's gonna get like parts of it's gonna get a little crisp, you know, like how when you roast vegetables, and the flavor is just crazy how good it is. So we will see you in 25 minutes when this is done, and then we will start on the biscuits and the gravy. Hello everyone, we're back and our sausage is done. We started halfway through. I took it out and put it in a bowl. I don't know if you can see that, but it looks just like breakfast sausage crumbles. So we're gonna set this aside and use it in our gravy in a little bit, but right now we're gonna start on our biscuits. So you're gonna take 2/3 of a cup of just raw cashews, and you're going to add 2.5 cups of water to that. And so what we're making here is a very, very basic cashew cream. And you're just going to blend it. You can do it in a food processor or a blender. There you go. Cashew cream. And I'm going to use this as a work surface, so let's clean it off a little bit. You're going to take a bowl. You're going to bump your oven up to 475. Sorry, should have said that too a while ago. To your bowl, you're going to whisk together 2 cups of flour. Just some. We always just use the whole wheat flour. Put that in there. And then a tablespoon of baking powder and half a teaspoon of salt. If you use self-rising flour, you obviously omit that. Give it a quick little whisk. Now here is the trick to biscuits. You barely touch them. I mean barely. The more you touch them, the more you're going to end up with just a white hockey puck. They're going to be tough. They're not going to rise. You're going to have to lay your OCD aside and not think, I have to keep whipping this up and keep kneading this because it's not going to work, okay? So now, I'm going to get a wooden spoon actually. To this, you're going to add your cream. And you're barely going to stir this. And when I say barely, I mean barely. You're just kind of toss it a little bit to where it's just kind of like a sloppy dough. You know, it's not going to be, obviously when we pour it out to cut out biscuits from it, you don't want your, liquid going everywhere. So start a little bit past that point. Like a shaggy dough, kind of. So see how it's not super stirred? You can still see some flour. You can still see some loose cream. Then you're going to, here's a trick. This little guy right here, you can get it. I got this one at the Dollar Tree, so it was $1. And it's actually like for scraping on your cutting board, pick up your onions or whatever, or chopping. It's really good to use with this so you don't accidentally over knead it. So, you're going to flour your work surface. Turn the dough out. Then, make sure I get all that. Actually, just a second. This is actually called a spatula. It's always used wrong. The thing that you flip your eggs with, back when we ate eggs, that's called a turner. This is a spatula. So you take your spatula. It's really good for getting every little drop out of things. So then, there's your really loose, funny looking dough. Told you, got to lay your OCD aside. And then you're just going to kind of flour this turner thing. And then you're just going to like flip it over on itself only like 3 to 4 times. You don't really, I'm sorry, not 3 to 4, 4 to 6. Just kind of help loose or work in the rest. That if it gets too sticky, start sticking to your countertop, you can obviously add more flour. Flour your hands before you touch the dough, otherwise you end up like this. So then, flour your hands, and you're just going to pat it out. Again, barely touching it. We don't want to touch it a whole bunch. This is the trick to Southern fluffy biscuits. So about, a 1/2 inch thick, 3/4 of an inch. Pat it out, and then take a biscuit cutter. I think it's an old Tupperware one. I don't know where I even got it. Here we are. You're going to flour it really good, and then just cut out your biscuits. Put it on a baking pan with a silicone mat. Greatest invention ever. This, you'll get out, depending on how thick you make them, like maybe 10 or so biscuits. You can make them a little thinner or thicker, I guess. So I got out 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 biscuits. Okay, so then you bake it. Put it in the oven on the top rack. You're just going to bake them for, sorry, I moved my cheat sheets. For about 10 to 12 minutes. So I'm going to put these in the oven. I'm going to clean up my hands and meet you at the stove where we're going to make some gravy. Okay, here we are with the stove. And you're going to add 1.5 cups of non-dairy milk. It can be almond, it can be soy. Just make sure it's obviously unflavored. You don't want, vanilla flavored gravy. I just thought of something. I could probably make chocolate gravy pretty easy. My creative wheels are spinning. Get back on that one in a minute. So now to that, you're just going to have it kind of on medium-ish heat. You're going to add stirring, whisking. I have one of these little silicone whisk things. Kind of a love-hate relationship with it. It's really pretty, but it's hand wash only. To that, you're going to add 1/4 1/4 cup of flour. It can be spelt flour, wheat flour, quinoa flour, things like that. Again, we just use whole wheat flour for this. And then you're just going to whisk, 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 whisk until it all dissolves. Then, get it all dissolved, you're going to bring it to a boil. Get it all dissolved. And to that, after it's all good and dissolved, you're going to add, in here I have a teaspoon of onion powder, a teaspoon of nutritional yeast. You know, nutritional yeast is not like baking yeast. It just gives us that kind of buttery, cheesy flavor. A 1/2 teaspoon of salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of dry thyme, and a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. Whisk that in. Turn my heat up just a little bit because we want it to come to a boil. Now you're going to add pepper to taste. So remember, you can always add more, just can't take away. Just start with a good little pinch, and then you can add some more at the end. Taste it, see if you like it or not. Believe it or not, this seems kind of crazy, but it will get thick. Whisk, whisk, whisk. Takes about 10 minutes, so it's kind of good. The biscuits take about 10 minutes, so get the biscuits in the oven, and you can start right on this, and they'll be done at the same time. I'm actually going to remove this from the heat now, because you can see it's pretty thick. You can add more plant milk if you want a little bit of a thinner gravy. And our biscuits are just about done. And I'm going to add a little more salt and pepper to my gravy. Maybe a little more plant milk. It got kind of thick on me, didn't it? So this is the milk we use. It's just the West Soy organic unsweetened soy milk. Get it anywhere, Walmart, Kroger. You just get a bigger thing of it. It's 2 quarts. So, lasts a little longer. Thin this out a little bit. I think the last time I made this, I had to thin it out a little bit. Let's give it another taste. Y'all, that's so good. If you miss biscuits and gravy, you're gonna love me for this because it's gonna take you back to your childhood or your pre-plant-based whole food days where you can have biscuits and gravy. There we go. Beautiful biscuits. Gravy. Now to the gravy. It doesn't take all this sausage that we made because it does make a lot. But add some of it in there. To your liking, you can add more or less. Of course, the gravy, the sausage is flavored too, so you don't want to over season your gravy if you're going to add the sausage to it, because then it'll just be too much. I think that's pretty good. Now, let's plate this. Y'all, it's so perfect. Look at that. Isn't that good? Looks just like the biscuits we used to eat all the time, right? So, let's scoop some gravy on top. And there you have it. Plant-based whole food biscuit and gravy. Just like Mom used to make. Only better because you can eat all you want to. And it's just vegetables. Spot on. Perfect. It's so good.